Say hello to the brand new facelifted Kia Picanto. Could this well be the perfect car for young and or new drivers? Well, keep watching to find out why. Price, that is likely to be one of the main things you're looking at when buying a new car, and thankfully the Kia Picanto is an appealing prospect. This has a starting price of £15,595, which is not only cheaper compared to its South Korean cousin, the Hyundai i10, but it's also cheaper compared to the Toyota Aygo X as well. Now, in case you're thinking about getting this on finance, over 36 months, if you put down a £5,000 deposit, you get a £500 dealer contribution. Of course, interest rates may fluctuate, but you could be paying around £145 per month on a PCP. Now, because of the weather, unfortunately, I can't have any GoPros on the outside because trying to stick a GoPro to a wet car, not going to happen. And I've lost a few too many GoPros over the years to even consider risking it. Now, of course, this car is cheap to buy, relatively. Let's face it, new cars aren't exactly cheap, but you get what I mean. As well as being cheap, of course, this needs to be cheap to run. What good is having a car that is attractive to buy if it drinks like a load of lads on a stag do? Thankfully, again, this is an area, that's not enough power, Aaron, this is an area where the Kia Picanto will once again look to be appealing. On a combined run, you can get around 55 miles to the gallon, and CO2 emissions are as little as 111 grams per kilometre. It's worth noting though that I've got the GT line, which is on larger 16-inch alloys. Therefore, the fuel economy falls down a little bit. It's more around 52, 53 mpg, and the CO2 rises to 122 grams per kilometre, if I'm not mistaken. Underneath the bonnet, you have a 1 litre 3-cylinder naturally aspirated petrol. You can have a 1.2 litre 4-cylinder naturally aspirated petrol, but not in the GT line trim. Now, this version is £16,745. You do get quite a lot of standard, so I will need to cut to a voiceover a little bit later in the video to talk you through the specification. I will be honest, if you're looking for a car that has the performance to match the somewhat sportier exterior, then you will be disappointed because this 1 litre engine, punchy, is not a word I would use for it. If you go for the 5-speed manual like I have here, you will hit 62 miles per hour in a very pedestrian 15.4 seconds. Now, okay, don't get me wrong, this car isn't about performance, but on the same hand, there's a good chance you're going to be doing the odd road trip, or you don't want to be driving on a road where you're going to feel like a burden to other motorists because you just can't get any power going from the engine to the gearbox to the wheels and onto the road. It could be worse though. If you go for the 5-speed automated manual, by the way, I wouldn't recommend that because I've experienced that gearbox and it gives you some idea of what it would be like to fill your gearbox with treacle. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. But if you must have an automatic, the 5-speed automated manual, it will do 62 miles per hour in over 18 seconds. Yes, you heard me right, 18. I'll be honest, I didn't think it was possible for a new car of this age to give such a woeful 0 to 62 time. And yes, before you keyboards warrior, warm up your fingertips. I know, that's not what this car is about. It's about cheap and cheerful driving. Come on, 3rd gear, nothing is happening. There we go. This is all about cheap and cheerful driving, just nipping in and around town, and this isn't meant to be some big motorway mile muncher. I get that. On the plus side, it does mean that you're less likely to get points on your license. So if you are a new or young driver, there we go. Kia has thought of you. They've purposefully detuned their engine to keep your license safe and to keep you safe. I mean, Kia, it is a public service, frankly. Another thing that's appealing about the Kia Picanto, like any Kia, is you get a 7-year warranty. So that'll give you peace of mind if you're worrying about your car breaking. To be fair, the Kias, on the most part, they're pretty bulletproof. But yes, you do have that 7-year warranty to back things up. Let's talk about the driving impressions. So this is a very short drive. This is by no means a full-blown review. These are just my first thoughts. And yeah, whilst the engine is a little bit lacking in power, once you wind it up and get up to speed, it's no bother. The 5-speed manual's got a nice light change to it. It's a fairly smooth change. Throws aren't too long, so it's actually quite a pleasing shift. As I mentioned, you can have the 5-speed automated manual, but yeah, I wouldn't recommend that. Let's see what's down here. Whee! Now, with it being a small car, it's a little bit enjoyable to throw into the corners. You do have somewhat skinny tyres, of course, so particularly on a day like today, you are limited with the grip. But again, I'm sure for the majority of new or young drivers, that isn't going to be a massive concern. Let's face it, you're not going to be as well. I say you're not going to be throwing the car into corners like Lewis Hamilton. You're a young driver, so you probably will. You probably think you're the next Max Verstappen. Yeah, the gear change is pretty pleasing. Let's talk about the ride. I'd say the ride is a little on the firm side. And it does, you will certainly notice the bumps, but it's a smaller car, so it won't have the most sophisticated suspension setup, and you're having to deal with a shorter wheelbase, which isn't always good news in regard to ride comfort. That's the lane departure warning. Yeah, it can be a little bit annoying, but it can also be turned off. Now, with this being a city car, the steering at lower speeds is nice and light, so it's really easy to manoeuvre. So if you're navigating tight multi-storey car parks, this will be an absolute breeze. With it being a 3-cylinder, you do get that somewhat trademark 3-pot thrum, which I quite like. There's some that aren't a massive fan of it, but I think it adds character to the car. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of brand new cars just don't have a lot of that character, so it's nice for a car to have a little bit of a personality. So it is lacking in new cars, in my humble opinion, but that's a different topic for another time. Well, keep it there. You do get a pretty good specification with the Kia Picanto. You get a 9-inch touchscreen. You've got the digital display, which is really pleasing. And I'll be honest with you, it's really impressive for a car of this size, class, and price point to have the digital dash. So Kia, thumbs up from me. Got Android Auto, of course, Apple CarPlay, but I mean, nowadays that almost goes without saying. Same as DAB radio and Bluetooth. What car doesn't have those features nowadays? Talking of specification, let me go through what features are included with the Kia Picanto. There are 5 trim levels available: 2, GT Line, 3, Shadow and GT Line S, with prices ranging from £15,595 through to £19,145. The base Model 2 offers standard features including 14-inch alloys, automatic headlights, 8-inch touchscreen, not 9 inches as I referred to a little earlier in the video, Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, rear parking sensors, reversing camera, and a 4.2-inch digital instrument cluster. The GT line adds to this with 16-inch alloys, LED front light bar, GT line styling, LED headlights, privacy glass, and faux leather upholstery. The 3 trim level adds heated steering wheel, heated front seats, wireless phone charger, LED door mirror indicators, and climate control. The Shadow adds keyless entry and adventurous green faux leather, sounds interesting, which of course leaves the range-topping GT Line S, which is able to boast a sunroof and extra safety features including blind spot monitoring. Now, I haven't mentioned the power output at this point. This has a very modest 63 horsepower along with 93 newton meters of torque. If you were to go for the 1.2 litre petrol, you do get a bit more performance. I think that chucks out around 77 horsepower. So it's not exactly a night and day difference, but if you do want a bit more performance, that would be the engine to go for. Of course, with more power, you do get less fuel economy, but even on the 1.2, you're still getting low 50s. So there's not a massive stark contrast between jumping from the 1 litre to the 1.2, but let's face it, it's only 200cc of displacement. It's not a massive amount. Speaking of size, what about boot space and interior space? Because of the Kia Picanto's small footprint on the road, it does mean that the boot is on the small side, which may limit you, particularly if you're looking to go on a road trip with your friends. With the rear seats up, there are 255 litres on offer, which can be extended to 1010 litres with the rear seats folded down. It should go without saying, but space at the rear will be tight for taller adults, but that is to be expected due to the car's size. Sadly, the footage of me sitting in the rear has been lost, but take my word for it, it's quite snug. In regard to insurance groups, because again that's going to be an important aspect when choosing your first car or choosing a new car, I believe if you go for the base model, the insurance group is 4A. I may need to correct myself with the subtitle, but for this model, the GT line, it's 5A. So a little bit higher, of course, because it's a more expensive car. You've got the larger alloys, and yeah, it is a little bit more, but it shouldn't hopefully break the bank. Mind you, having said that, car insurance nowadays, yeah, blood money. So there we have it, guys, a brief but hopefully informative drive of the brand new facelifted Kia Picanto. I do hope you have enjoyed this video or found it useful. If so, be sure to like, comment and subscribe. If you are subscribed, don't forget to click the bell icon so you get notified every time I make a video. But until the next time, guys, be sure to keep up the car obsession.